Okay, so I'm gonna have to re-record this because I was recording but I didn't press the button. So what I want to talk about today is about desire and consciousness and the human nature to destruct. Human beings have desire, and desires causes to self-destruct and to cause harm to other people. If you think of the 7 deadly sins, which I don't know all of them, but the basic ones are lust, gluttony, we have greed, we have lust, we have anger. So we have all of these natural tendencies. We have all of these abilities and all of these desires that cause us to self-destruct or cause harm to other people. What we're taught and what we hear a lot is that all of our negative qualities and all of the problems that we have in life are related to something that happened in childhood or our environment, our upbringing. And if you have that belief, it's very difficult for you to overcome that, because if everything is related to something that happened in childhood, whatever happened in childhood is out of your control. You can't do anything about the past, and there's nothing you can do to change it. It's out of your hands. And so when you blame your lack of boundaries, your history of bad dating, your emotional dysregulation, if you blame everything on childhood, then you develop this passive attitude towards healing. Everything just goes back to childhood and your upbringing. And that isn't a very empowering belief to have. I'm not saying that upbringing has no impact. There are people that have experienced neglect and abuse in childhood, which does affect them and which will affect them. But now it's become it's become the ordinary person that just blames everything that happened to them due to their upbringing. And it completely misses or dismisses the nature of human beings. Human beings have desire, and desires cause us to destruct. And that capability to destruct exists within human beings with or without trauma. A person could have had no trauma, but they have that capability to destruct. Human beings are by their nature selfish and driven to do what is in their best interest. And so because we are in our nature self-driven, and then on top of that we have desires which cause us to destruct, we are naturally destructive. We are by our nature destructive. And it's not and to counter that, we also have consciousness. We have something that calls us to our morality. We have an understanding of right and wrong. We have guilt. So it's not that we're just left alone with destructive tendencies. No, we have the counter to that, which is consciousness. And when we talk about, if you've heard of the shadow and the dark side, that shadow is our destructive side. It's where all our dark impulses hide. And human beings have that dark side. And so if we take responsibility for the negative qualities that we have and the problems that we experience, we can actually heal. I'm not ignoring the fact that other people can cause us harm. Yes, people can cause us harm and we will experience pain. That is part of the human experience. But we are then responsible for our healing. And the way that I can put it is that someone has caused you a wound. That wound, although it's been caused by another person, if it was caused by another person, it is our responsibility to heal. Just blaming others isn't what's going to heal that wound. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to do things that will heal that wound. So although other people can cause us wounds, we become responsible for healing that wound. So yes, you might have experienced some issues during childhood. You will experience things in adulthood and you will be left with wounds. What I want to differentiate is just blaming everything that you are on childhood and giving yourself no responsibility for your negative impulses. If you lack boundaries, if you are surrounding yourself with unhealthy people, you can't blame that on childhood. You have a choice. You are choosing these situations. Obviously, not in all circumstances you're at fault, but what I'm saying is that we can't just blame childhood for everything. We have to take responsibility that we made those choices. Even in situations where you didn't have boundaries, there was a choice there. When someone tells you or demands things of you, you have a choice to do it. You're not held at gunpoint to do anything or to behave in the way other people's want. Well, you have a choice. You give in to the pressure and you behave in the ways that other people expect you to behave. And so we have to take responsibility for who we become, and all the negative and all the good qualities, all the negative qualities that we develop. Even if someone has caused us pain, we have to understand that in our nature we have a destructive tendency. When someone then hurts us, that destructive tendency increases and amplifies, and we heighten in our desire to destruct. And that's when we start self-destructing or we start hurting other people. So trauma does play an important role in our destruction, but it's not to say that trauma is to blame for everything. No, the human being has the capacity to destruct without trauma. But putting trauma into the mix, obviously, it makes everything worse. So this dual nature that we have, which is the human ability to create and the human ability to destroy, is a very powerful force. When human beings want to create, they can create something as amazing as life itself. When two people get together, they can create life. That is the power of human beings when they choose to create. And when they choose to destroy, that is equally powerful and damaging. But the level of destruction we can cause as human beings, the level of evil that can exist within human beings is unimaginable. Our nature allows us to create life, to reproduce, to build, to develop ourselves. If we become aligned with our consciousness, and then our nature also enables us to destroy and to hurt and harm and cause immense suffering. And that is created because of our desires, our desire for power, our desire for lust, our greed, our envy, our anger. All of these propel us towards destruction. If you look at the religious concept of sin, if you want to understand it, is anything that is destructive to yourself or destructive to another human being. And so when we restrain ourselves from sin, what we're restraining ourselves essentially from is self-destruction. When we're taught to abstain from sin is the equivalence of discipline. So when you abstain from indulging in your desires, it is taught to you as worship, but what it essentially is discipline and self-restraint. And that self-restraint and discipline allows us to grow and develop, pushes us to be better, to create healthy habits. It isn't trying to repress your dark side or your shadow, it's trying to restrain it. So when you abstain from giving into your desires, something as simple as gluttony, because I think gluttony is probably the least harmful of the 7 deadly sins. So if you restrain yourself from feeding your body unhealthy food, that has such immense positive impact on your mental, emotional, psychological state. So imagine if you were to restrain and have discipline with your anger, with your lust, with your envy, what it would propel you towards, what mental and psychological state it would create within you if you were able to restrain and create discipline. So a lot of therapies sell you this idea that all of your bad qualities are because of your childhood upbringing. But what they don't tell you is that you as a human being, with or without trauma, are self-destructive. And when you have trauma, your destructive tendencies are going to be amplified. So yeah, you might feel like some things have been caused by trauma, but it is not out of your control to change or to heal. And that's why when you go to therapy, you don't really change. You don't create transformation from therapy, because there is nothing in there that can create transformation. There's no strategies there to create transformation. And to create strategies, you need to have the right information. You need to understand yourself, and you need to understand human beings and how the world operates. Without that, you're just in a constant loop where you have to go back to therapy and you're dependent on the therapist to understand your. When you understand that human beings have a destructive side, you then know that every human being has the capacity to hurt you. You then understand the importance of boundaries and how, when we're interacting with another human being, we need to have boundaries in place, because we know that human beings can cause us harm. We also can let go of that guilt that we have when we're indulging in destructive behavior. Those addictions, the lack of boundaries, the lack of good relationships or healthy habits, it's not to do with your childhood. It's the choices that you've made and who you've chosen to become. You could go through immense suffering and still turn out to be a great human being. You could have an easy life and become a very challenging and difficult human being. Suffering doesn't equate all the bad qualities you have. Many people who have gone through suffering but can still create something good from that. And you'll know people who've had such good lives and they're just terrible people. And sometimes pain is what humbles us. Pain is what brings us to reality. And human beings idealize themselves and the world. They live in this ideal fantasy of how the world should work. But how the world works and how human beings fantasize and idealize, these two are misaligned. We think that human beings should just know how to treat us. People should just treat us with respect, with honor. We don't respond to our duties as human beings towards another person. We respond to the harm that it will cause us, because human beings are by their nature selfish and self-driven. So if a person knows that they're going to be harmed in some way because they're going to cause you harm, by causing you harm, they're not going to cause you harm. If someone knows that you have boundaries, they're not going to go towards you. They're going to think twice before they break your boundaries. That is how human beings operate. The good, the bad, and the evil. Everyone. Because even good people can cross your boundaries. Even a good person who you would generally think of as moral can cross your boundaries, and will cross your boundaries if you allow them to. This is not me saying that human beings are evil, but it's that we have the capacity to be evil if it goes unchecked. And if you look at societies, why do we need laws? Why do we need a law that says do not kill? Why do we need to have consequences? Because human beings will hurt people if there are no laws, if there are no boundaries and consequences. And if that is how we operate as a group, as a community, this is how we need to be operating in our relationships. Whatever we do on a larger scale, we should be doing on a smaller scale. So if we need laws to manage our interactions with people, because there is a possibility of harm, we need to be operating at that level on a smaller scale, because there is still the possibility of harm. So this is a video about desire and how desire is the cause of our destruction. And when we leave it unchecked and undisciplined and we allow it to take control, then we are causing our own self-destruction and causing harm to other people as well. It's got nothing to do with your childhood, and it's got everything to do with your and the human nature. And once we can understand that, we can free ourselves from that burden that everything that we do is because of childhood, and as though childhood has the strings to control your present. And just the final thing that I want to say about that is, when we look at motivation, we think we're going to feel motivation and then we're going to get our act together. But it's the opposite. We have to get our act together, we have to do the actions, and then motivation will follow. And this applies even here, which is that you have to do the actions, you have to restrain yourselves, you have to create the discipline, and the healing will occur. It's very important that you understand your nature as a human being. If you now understand, actually, these are my choices and I can create change. But as long as you're stuck in your childhood, you feel that it's out of your control, you feel that you don't have any choice in the matter and in the choices that you make in life. People can change, people can go from being so confident and having an experience, maybe dating someone who was toxic, and lose all their confidence. The opposite is true. Someone could have very little confidence and take the right actions and then become extremely confident. Someone can be so self-destructive and create healthy habits, and someone that has had a good upbringing, they could become destructive. There is no fixed quality, and that is a good thing, because that means that, let's say you did experience abuse or neglect in childhood, it doesn't control who you are right now. You control who you are.